We're going to offer a game suggestion to you, and this game is called Find the Feeling Place. We're going to tell you first why we encourage you to do it, because we want to really do the best sales job ever in helping you to understand the power of this game. The power of this game. So, the law of attraction is like the law of gravity. It's always operating. You can't turn it off. No one can. And the law of attraction, because it's always operating, is like the law of gravity, but let's call it like the field of gravity. It's a gravity field till you get out there in outer space, and then it's different. So this universal field of attraction is always operating universally. There's no outer space to get beyond it. It is this universal law. This is that which is likened to itself is drawn. The frequencies match up always. So here you are, having whatever experience you've just had in whatever moment, and you're offering your vibration, and maybe you feel guilty. Maybe you've been pushing back. Maybe you've been justifying. It doesn't matter for the sake of this conversation, but you're feeling what you're feeling. And what we want you to hear from us is that no matter what it is that you're feeling, that feeling is the indicator of the mix of frequencies between you and your inner being. And it also, most important, is the way you are stepping in. You are presenting yourself to the field of attraction. Period. Doesn't matter why, doesn't matter how long. In this moment, as you step into this new segment, you are presenting yourself vibrationally to something that's going to come back to you. So the more time you are on the treadmill, the more time you are listening to things that feel good, the more time you are reaching for the feeling place that does feel good, the more often you find it so it's easy to return to until it's like a muscle it's just there for you. That's the one that responds to you. Then the more this law of attraction that responds to you will deliver back to you a stream of good feelings on the way to manifestations that are just awesome by your standards and everyone else. That's it. There are so many books that are written and classes that are given about what you should and shouldn't do. And it's so complicated. It's like trying to adjust to the incoming from your airwaves, from your inboxes, from your emails, from all your social medias. In other words, it's just too much to comprehend. It's just a chaotic maze that keeps you in upheaval. And at some point, you've got to step back from the chaos, and you've got to calibrate a feeling within you by feeling your way into the alignment that your source holds. So the game, we call it Finding the Feeling Place. The premise that we're wanting to present here is that you cannot think your way through something, but you sure can feel your way through it, because you created something wonderful in the midst of everything that you've been living there. And there's something wonderful, not just for your next open loops, but for everyone else's too. So, in the way you enter the field of attraction, because you've practiced it, is with love. You see, here's the thing. We want you to know, all of you, how your inner beings are looking at you. Your inner beings are with you in every moment, step by step by step, experience by experience, conversation by conversation. Your inner being is right there, not bored, interested. The difference between you and your inner being is that your inner being is always looking at what you've created, not looking at where you are or where you've been. That's what our friend was talking about earlier. He recognizes that there's a new him, and he doesn't want to keep focusing on the old him. And the reason that that's a really good idea is because your inner being is not looking back. There is no regression. Your inner being is always looking forward. So you've decided that this is going to happen. I'm in the middle of this, let's call it deliberate renewal. I'm in the middle of my familiar, meaning family, familiar realignment. I'm in the middle of my familiar continuation and expansion, and always will be, and always will be. So when you know what you don't want, and you know what you do want, you've contributed all of these, what we've been calling for years, rockets of desires, and you've created a vibrational reality that is all pure positive energy. And your inner being who never focuses lackfully is only focused upon wanted, and the law of attraction who is responding not just to you, but to the inner being version of you, is responding to your inner being. Have you heard us say that one who's in alignment with that source is more powerful than millions who are not? Those aren't even accurate words. It's so much more. When the law of attraction responds to your inner being, who's thinking about you with no resistance, there is a powerful gathering of cooperative components. And you are one of those cooperative components that's being gathered to your own desire. Unless you're in one of those modes when you've been tit for tatting, when you've been, well, it's your fault, when you're doing that, then you're not in connection with your inner being, and now you're playing that game. And nobody ever wins that game. Everybody playing that game, I'm right, no, I'm right, no, I'm right, no, I'm right. Well, you did that, well, you did that. Well, it's your fault, well, it started back. Nobody wins that. Everybody loses that. Everybody just rides around in misery and attracts more misery. Meanwhile, you've created something magnificent that you're depriving yourself of because you have this flawed premise that you got to explain something that they're not going to understand anyway. Have you ever had an experience where you've moved through time and now you get your parents? Oh yeah. I guess I can stop being mad at them now. In other words, your inner being is calling you, and your inner being is calling everyone else in the equation too. We know we make it sound simplistic because it is, friends. It is simple. It's simple. A woman was wanting a new relationship, and we asked her to describe it, what we really wanted, and this is what we were getting at. We wanted her to make us understand her feeling place that she was looking for. So she said words like happy and getting along and compatible, and it went on and on and on and on. She just couldn't spit out any description. And we said, really, way too vague. Way too vague. Sort of like platitudes, like lip service. It wasn't moving anything. She wasn't moving anything. She wasn't finding the feeling place. She was saying words that meant things to her, but she wasn't even close to the meaning of the words. Well, tell us why you're done with that relationship. Friends, she was no longer vague. That feeling place was so vivid to her, we had to slow her down before everyone started crying. It was so easy to find the unwanted feeling place, that practice that you're talking about. And so hard for her to find the feeling place is what she was looking for. It's like finding the feeling place of being a millionaire or a billionaire when what you really feel is that you can't pay your rent. And most people think, well, give me $1 million and I'll feel better. And we say for a minute, but it won't last. You have to find a way of finding the feeling place of it. Now, this feels a little confusing because we're asking you to not try to speak your way through it or think your way through it. We're asking you to feel your way through it. We're asking you to find the feeling and let the feeling lead, and then let the feeling inspire you to the words. And they kind of go together. But if your emphasis is upon producing a feeling, not a manifested result, a feeling, that's what you're looking for right now, a feeling. So you might say something like, we're going to speak in terms that so many of you can relate to as you're looking for this relationship, or as you're looking for being inside of a wanted relationship. I like feeling home. Fill it in with words if you need to. Smells good, feels good, comfort. Comfort. Nice to be in, relaxed to be in, happy to be in, warm to be in, free to be in, easy to be in. See what we're getting at? Find the feeling and then try to define it with other things that bring more to it. That feeling of being with someone who is also home and not depending on me to be there. Someone who is tuned in, who is self-sufficient, who we're good together because we're both powerful attractors, but we're not dependent on each other for the stuff. Now, that was a lot of words, but did you get the feeling of it? So what does that feel like? It feels like It's awesome. It feels awesome, vague, too vague. It feels like freedom, too vague. It feels like being there and not being in trouble. Now, that was a tricky way to go about it. But when you know what being in trouble feels like, feel the other end of that. Feel the assumed. If you know what being in trouble feels like, feel what the assumed not being in trouble is. Being able to follow my own bliss. Being able to follow inspired. Being so tuned in with my inner being that love is dominant. Loving what I see. Loving our environment. Loving what I see in you. Loving to come home. Eager to come home. Want to be home. Want to be home. Want to be together. Now we know lots of words and hard to separate one from the other, but you get what we're going for? You're wanting to conjure that feeling. That feeling, and a lot of the feeling, you know, because you felt the other end of that stick a lot. Almost everybody is after almost everybody. Did you do that? Did you do that? Why didn't you do that? Well, I don't feel so good. You need to do more for me. And you're going, yikes. I want to go screaming into the woods. And what are you running to the woods for? You're running to the woods for freedom from the impossible task of being someone else's point of attraction. That's what you want freedom from, but you don't get it until you are your own point of attraction. Till you have worked in concert with your powerful inner being. I want to be me. I want to feel that. I want to be selfish. Well, selfish means be self. And who self is someone who loves. And someone who loves because that's your nature. And if they're not lovable, you've practiced finding the feeling place of the lovable things about them so much that it's dominant and it's all you can see. You want to have that inner being's love because that's who you are. And nothing can separate you from that clarity, from that sureness, from that passion, from that knowing, from that inspiration, from that steadiness. No one can separate you from that. But some dear heart can get all mixed up with you and make you want it more than life itself. You didn't even know how much you wanted that until you had a steady dose of not having it. In other words, it starts with almost anybody. Most people are asking most people to do things so that they can feel better. It starts with your mother. It starts with your siblings. It starts with your peers. So what we're getting at here is most people, we love you so much, you didn't mean to do it, and it's not wrong that you did it, but it's high time that you got some clarification about it. Most humans calibrate to other humans. Someone shows a little disapproval, oh, you do it different then. That's not a nice thing to do to anybody. It seems like the nicest thing to do, oh, how can I help? Oh, how can I help? Oh, how can I help? What you want them to do is to understand that things come to them because they are presenting themselves to the field of attraction, and the way they feel is what's going to meet them halfway. If you let yourself join the hate crowd, then you've gained nothing by your new intentions, because you'll just take yourself with you into the next and into the next and into the next. You got to practice loving everywhere you go. We'll give you the physics of this. When you isolate an emotion and you stay there, whether it feels bad or good, but we're going to assume that it feels good, and you stay there, in only 17 seconds, more like it joins it. It doubles. And in another 17 seconds, it doubles again. And in another. In other words, this exponential attraction is really worth acknowledging. And as you're walking around with that practiced vibration, the law of attraction won't match you up with those who are different from you. So it's going to begin to feel like the world has just become this magnificently transformed place where everywhere you look, there is something in harmony with you. That's how it is. That's just how it works. Because the law of attraction never, ever makes an error, ever. Good to know?